Hello, Fangrafer here. Welcome, as we're getting back to more of the Castlevania timeline. So, last time we went through basically the beginning of the timeline, going from the events that kicked off the whole thing to basically the end of Trevor's story. So now we're going to go into the more legendary parts, meaning basically the parts that many people tend to say are the highlights of the series. We're going from the 1500s, the 16th century, into basically the 1800s. So we're gonna go ahead a few hundred years. So let's start with Christopher Belmont's era. The events takes place during Castlevania The Adventure during the year 1576. Count Dracula, slain 100 years before, is reborn. It's rumored that the Bartley family was responsible for this act. It's from this point that the legend begins. Once every 100 years, when the faith in God is forgotten, Dracula will come back to life. Christopher, descendant of Trevor, apparently succeeds in vanquishing Dracula. Then later, in Castlevania II Belmont's Revenge, 1591, though Christopher Belmont had defeated the evil Count Dracula 15 years ago, he did not manage to destroy him, as the Count turned himself into a mist and managed to escape. Building up his energy and biding his time over the years, as Christopher's son came of age, a ceremony was held to confer the title of Vampire Hunter upon him, so that a father and son team could be formed. But after the ceremony had been completed, Dracula used his power to take control over Solier Belmont's mind, and then made 4 castles appear. Christopher vowed to destroy Dracula and return his son to normal, and in the end, he defeated the evil Count and restored his son, and the land was returned to its normal balance once again. Sadly, Sulliu never got his own game, so we're gonna jump ahead exactly 100 years to Castlevania, where we're gonna be meeting Simon Belmont. Presumably, he is related to Christopher, but in what way if his grandson and Solier's son, we do not know. Anyway, Castlevania's events, as we all know, takes place in 1691. Count Dracula is fully revived by the forces of evil for the second time. Simon Belmont defeats Dracula once more, but in the wake of Dracula's death is struck with a curse. 7 years later, in 1698 AD, Simon's quest takes place. The curse afflicted on Simon 7 years earlier continues to affect his body, which slowly starts to decay. A mysterious woman appears to Simon while visiting his family's graveyard, and is told that Dracula will be revived when the curse kills him. The only way to lift the curse is for Simon to gather the scattered body parts of Dracula and burn them where his castle once stood. Simon successfully gathers and burns all 5 pieces. However, Dracula is reborn again through the 6th piece, his fang. Simon fights valiantly and prevents Dracula's full resurrection from taking place. Also, we do not know if this is truly the end of Simon, because the next game, which is Harmony of Dissonance, taking place in 1748, we meet Just Belmont, Simon's grandson. So, either Just was born after the events of Simon's quest, or he was born before that. Because he is said to be between 18 and 20 something. So I do not know really. So either way, let's see what happens. 50 years after Simon's battle, Juice Belmont, grandson of Simon, continues the family's vampire hunting traditions and upholds the duty for searching for Dracula's relics. However, his childhood friend Lytle is kidnapped and brought to a mysterious castle, which had suddenly risen up out of the mist. Juice's best friend, Maxime, joins him in the search for Lytle in the mysterious castle. However, it turns out that Maxime was possessed by the evil spirit born out of Dracula's remains, which were brought together by him. The castle that had appeared was spawned from Maxime's mind. The evil spirit wished to sacrifice Lytle in order to revive the true castle of Dracula. Combining the strength of the three friends, the evil spirit was defeated, his soul on Maxie disappeared, and the castle vanishes back into the mist. So now, let's jump ahead to a few years later, in 1792, Richter Belmont's era starts in Castlevania, Rondo of Blood. Called back to life by the dark priest Shaft, Dracula is revived again. Richter Belmont, descendant of Simon and Juiced. Again, before I continue, I just want to say, still no info if Richter is the son of Juiced, but they are related. However, like I said, we do not know if Juiced is his father or not. Because it is possible, considering that many fans like to theorize that Juiced married Lytle in the same way that Trevor married Sypha after their adventure was over. And if you look at the year difference between these two events, it is possible that Richter is the son of Juiced. Either way, Richter Belmont, descendant of Simon and Juiced Belmont, sets out to find and kill Dracula and save the women kidnapped from his town, including his fiancée Annette. Aided by Maria Renaud, a girl with mysterious powers, Richter prevails over Dracula. However, Richter was left defenseless from his battle with Dracula, and Shaft's curse enters his body. So now we're gonna jump ahead 4 years to 1797, where Symphony of the Night takes place. Shaft would continue to exist as a spirit contained within a glass ball. However, in 5 years since the previous battle, Shaft managed to gain control gain power through the curse placed on Richter. After 4 years, Shaft succeeded in gathering full power over Richter. He plans to revive Dracula with the aid of Richter's powers. Maria sets out to find the missing Richter, only to stumble on Dracula's castle, which has risen out of the mist. Sensing the rise of evil, Alucard awakens from a 300-year slumber. Thanks to Alucard, Richter is freed from Shaft's influence. Unable to influence Richter further, but with enough power to act on his own, Shaft summons Dracula's true castle as the inverted floating version in the sky above the current castle. Shaft lets Alucard collect the pieces of Dracula's body, then uses his own spirit as fuel to summon Dracula himself with them. Alucard battles his father and eventually defeats him, as he is using an imperfect form. Maria, Richter, and Alucard meet outside as the castle crumbles. Alucard leaves to return for sleep, and Maria decides to leave with him, as she's fallen in love with him. Sometime later, Richter vanishes from history. Next up, a year later, we have the radio drama Akomayo Dracula X Tsuiku no Yuatsuku. I know I really freaking butchered that. But this is a radio drama. Basically, the whole thing about it is that the incubus Magnus plots to make Alucard take his father's place as the Dark Lord. With a combined strength of 5 vampire hunters, this plan is foiled. So now, let's jump into the era of the Belmont clan's absence, which is gonna go through the forming of the Order of Ecclesia, and throughout the whole events of the Order of Ecclesia. So, the era of the Belmont clan's absence. In the 1800s, the Belmonts mysteriously disappeared. In their place, several organizations are formed to try and find ways to prevent Dracula from returning. The most prominent of these is the Order of Ecclesia. Thus, Castlevania Order of Ecclesia takes place sometime during the 1800s. We do not quite know, but it happens before 97. Shanoa, a Ecclesia member, has been chosen to be the bearer of Dominus, a glyph that was developed to be used as a weapon against Dracula. Fellow member Albus steals the 3 pieces that makes up Dominus out of jealousy. Shanoa pursues Albus and manages to retrieve the pieces. When she returns to the Ecclesia leader Barlow, it's revealed that he wishes to revive Dracula with the help of Dominus. He and Shanoa battle, but Dracula's spirit leaks from Dracula's remains, which was stored in the Ecclesia's headquarters, and takes control of Barlow, resulting in Dracula being reborn in a host's body. Shanoa heads to Dracula's newly risen castle and confronts him, managing to defeat him in the end. We're gonna stop here, and next time, in the 3rd episode, we're gonna plow through the rest of the timeline. We're gonna go through the Morris clan and all the events that happens there. Then we're going to meet Julius Belmont and go through his era. And then we're gonna go through the reconned timelines, or the reconned events, and then we're gonna go through the Lords of Shadows timeline. So it's gonna be quite a long one next time, folks. But until then, this is the end. So thank you so much for listening, and see you all next time. And until then, farewell.